We are live. Thursday night live reality check. Tonight is Mgtow Explained. I have one of my regular panel guys, which is Gonzo. Flannel returns. Gonzo, how you doing tonight?
I've returned.
Awesome.
Flannel. Yeah.
Excellent. And of course, DDJ of Misandry today. He's our Mgtow expert. For anybody who doesn't know, Mgtow means men going their own way. And I think there's a lot of, I just think there's a lot of thoughts and we'll say misthoughts on Mgtow and what it is. And I also think there's a lot of philosophies on Mgtow. So let's start with you, DDJ. Why don't you give us a little background on your channel and maybe a few things maybe in your life, obviously not too personal, that that kind of brought you this way and why you're doing it. So
sure. Well, just so everybody knows, I mean, when it comes to a lot of this stuff, I am a bit of an open book. I do have obviously some video channels. I've got Misandry Today on YouTube, Misandry Today on Odyssey, Misandry Today on BitChute. And if you dig back into my older videos on YouTube, you're going to find a video that's probably about, if I can still find it, I'm looking for it right now. Gosh, it's probably about 90 minutes long, and it's called DDJ's Inferno. And it was an interview that I had done with Turd Flinging Monkey in the first part of 2017. And basically going into why I got into Mgtow, why I came online, and kind of why I took the path in life that I did. And really, it all started probably when I was 25 years old, when my children were going back and forth between my ex-wife and myself.
Could I, oh, sorry, you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me fix this here. For anybody who doesn't know, who is Turd Flinging Monkey? I couldn't even remember the guy's name. And the reason I'm asking you that is because when I first heard of Mgtow, you know, that's kind of my first reference to Mgtow was the guy who married or dates a, whatever you want to call it, a plastic doll or a real doll or one of them things.
Yeah, yeah. So this was before all that. But he started making videos in 2015, specifically Mgtow videos, and he's considered, and it was considered for a long time, to be kind of one of the main thought leaders of what's referred to as kind of the modern Mgtow philosophy. And so, pardon me, I just had a soda, so if I burp a couple times, I apologize.
All right.
Anyway, so I say soda, it's what is this? It's a polar seltzer. Anyway, he and a couple people like him really they created some videos that were very pivotal to the philosophy and to the belief system. And so a lot of the things I kind of became, or I started identifying as Mgtow. Yeah, Stardust, Barbarossa, Marcus. I'm responding to the chat here, Jared. But he was having a live show, and I kind of wanted to talk about how I was able to win my family law case after a constant fight, but also to kind of help men go through this and you know, basically say, look, how do you navigate the family court system? Not necessarily as an MRA, but as a self-reliant man going your own way, right? Because a lot of times when you go into the family court system, you just want the divorce to be over. You just want the custody fight to be over, and you want to move on with your day. But what ends up happening is that either they go full spectrum warfare on you. And I say they, I don't mean necessarily your ex, but the court system as well, and all the quote unquote paid court professionals who aren't necessarily paid, you know, they're not hired by the court, or they're not, you know, they don't necessarily work for the court as paid employees, but they're like subcontractors or the court appointed professionals. And so kind of like a divorce incorporated sort of scenario where you have this cartel of people telling you what to do and how to do it, when the reality is there's nothing wrong with your parenting. But, you know, enough of that particular tangential soapbox. The issue here is that a lot of guys were getting wrecked in family court. They didn't know how to handle themselves. They didn't know how to talk to their own attorneys. They didn't know how to interact with a lot of these people. And so it was destroying these men's lives. And in fact, it destroyed mine. And I was able to pick up the pieces, go back, win custody of my kids, get them out of harm's way, get their abuser out of their life, get the mom supervised visitation, and protect my kids. And so I did this 90-minute video, and I thought it was on my YouTube channel. I don't see it here now. It's here somewhere. Maybe I uploaded it later. But anyway, if you look for my channel and you look for it, it's oh, here it is. Yeah, I posted it. It's called DDJ's Inferno, my first stream with TFM. It was posted 3 years ago. It's an hour and 26 minutes. And I go into detail as far as what brought me to the online sphere per se. Now, I did do some blogging beforehand, but it wasn't necessarily as like Mgtow focused blogging. It was more like just my observations and things like that. I did a little bit of like, and not much, but a little bit of independent journalism. And so when I started making my channel, in October of 2017 was my first video. And it was the social media constitutional crisis. And one of the things I've noticed in not just the Mgtow community, but in the manosphere in general, was that back then, people's voices were being silenced, and there was no way for people to kind of communicate about these things. Like there was no conversation about First Amendment. There was no conversation about whether or not Section 230 was unconstitutional. There was no conversation about a lot of the things that you're seeing today on like mainstream conservative media, you know, like Tucker Carlson, Newsmax, Fox News, Knock News, you know, Daily Caller, Daily Mail, Fox Nation. A lot of those conversations that they're having and they've had in the last 2 years, year and a half, those conversations didn't exist anywhere. We were having those conversations in the Mgtow community, in addition to trying to basically, the goal was to help men become more self-reliant. And so I resisted for about 6 months making my own channel. I made my channel. I started talking about the social media constitutional crisis, and I started looking at some of this stuff through a legal framework because, you know, I've been a high conflict litigation paralegal with a focus in trial litigation and appellate work. And so I'd seen some of the worst family law cases out there, in addition to what I personally experienced. And so I wanted to be able to provide some insight for men so that as they're making decisions, as you know, on their divorces or in their dating life or whether or not to get married, that they had additional information to go from. And then, you know, whatever choice they make at that point obviously is up to them. And the Mgtow philosophy deeply resonated with me. But I found that the more that I started getting involved with what I'd like to refer to as the last crop of Mgtow content creators, the more I started realizing that a lot of these people were not actually discussing the Mgtow philosophy. They were not promoting the things that I thought, and again, my own personal opinion today as well, is that they were not promoting self-reliance in men. They were not promoting men looking at objective facts and making decisions for themselves. And they were shaming people who did truly think for themselves. And so they said, well, if you're not this way, you can't be Mgtow, or if you're not that way, you can't be this. And at some level, that's true, right? So, for instance, you know, women can't be Mgtow because it's men going their own way. You know, teenage kids, some people say, oh, those guys can be Mgtow. Well, if you're a teenage kid and you've never dated or you've never been in a long-term relationship that may eventually evolve into a marriage, you're not walking away from anything, right? You're trying to go up in front of the class and do a presentation without your boner hanging out, right? So if you don't even have control of your own erections at that point, you're probably not Mgtow. And you know, and I can kind of go on and on about that. But my point is that when it came to self-reliance in men, when it came to this idea of being able to be your own man, to be independent enough and to be self-validated enough that you didn't need to go around and chase women trying to, you know, find any hole in a storm, there's a level of freedom that comes from that. Now, I don't think that Mgtow is permanent for everybody. I think some people go through periods where they're like, yeah, I'm Mgtow, this is the thing. But then they find somebody they think is appropriate. And they're like, okay, I'm going to give this a go and we're going to see what happens. So,
I want to say something is that's one of the things when we talked about this on another stream that caught me a little bit different when I talked to you, because I was glad you said that. I want to make a disclaimer here for myself, and I'm sure you guys, but this is not a woman-hating stream. I want to go back to a point you made real quick. I don't want you to lose your thought, but a lot of times it's not the woman, it's the court system and the lawyer and the lawyers that you have that cause the problems. Is that correct? In a divorce?
Well, it even goes beyond that. And let me say something else to the point that you just made, which I think is important. The original Mgtow manifesto, when it first came out and they codified it, one of the 3 pillars of the Mgtow manifesto was supporting feminine women. So women who were nurturing, women who were honest, women who were reliable, women who were not fair weather friends. So there is that element there too. And a lot of Mgtow don't know this. In fact, when I first started talking about the manifesto, right before I took a 2-year break from YouTube, I got a lot of pushback. They're like, oh, there's no manifesto. It doesn't exist. And then they switch from that to, oh, well, we don't follow that anymore. And I'm like, well, give me a good reason why not. And I have yet to hear one. But to address your other point, the court systems are deeply responsible for the way a lot of families are destroyed. But really, I think that the main issue, at least for me and what I have seen, the main thing that has destroyed relationships, marriages, people who want to be married, is feminism. And when I say feminism is the tip of the spear of communism. So when I say this and when I talk about this, and if you look in the 60s, everybody's like, oh, well, second wave feminism was great, but third wave feminism is this, and fourth wave, pardon me, fuck all that. The reality is this: second wave feminists, by and large, were mostly communists, and they admit it. They were out and out communists. They say, look, feminism and socialism, feminism and communism, they go hand in hand. And by the way, so we're clear, socialism is just a nice way of saying communism is communism. That's the difference between saying, promiscuous is the nice way of calling a woman a slut, right? Mm-hmm. So, and again, there are male sluts out there too. So just so we're clear. But my point is that there are many marriages that start. There are many relationships that start where, husband and wife love each other. They meet each other. They get engaged. They have this fantastic marriage. They're going to church. They're doing the thing. They've got their kids. And then all of a sudden, something changes. And the wife is like, I don't understand what's changed. I don't know what's going on. Or I've fallen out of love with you and I don't know why. Well, let me just go ahead and throw some ideas out here, which, by the way, are backed by science. Did you know that if you're on hormonal birth control of any kind, that you are more attracted to a certain kind of man than you are when you are off birth control?
Wow.
Okay. So with that in mind, the woman's on birth control, and many women are since probably the mid 80s, right? They're on hormonal birth control of some kind. They date this guy. They fall in love with him. They get married. They want to have kids. And she goes, oh, I'm on birth control. Let me get off birth control so we can have kids. I said, okay, great. So she gets off birth control. They get pregnant. They have a child. Now she's not only going through postpartum depression after the birth, but she's now attracted to a different kind of guy because her hormones have changed.
A guy with a shaved head, usually.
Oh, right. A guy with a shaved head, right. A guy that has a good hand grip for the ponytail, right? So, but the point is that, so then all of a sudden these women, I need to go out and find myself, right? And then it turns into ladies' night out, which, by the way, check her menstrual calendar and find out when she ovulates, and then reconcile that with ladies' night out. Okay. Mm-hmm. Don't take my word for it. You guys out there, if this happens to you, do it for yourself. You'll thank me later. Okay. All I'm saying is just take a look at that. But my point is that birth control was pushed by feminists, and it was pushed originally as a form of population control. It was a form of eugenics. And it was pushed by a card-carrying racist named Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of Planned Parenthood. And I know this because I spent. Go ahead.
Some people might not know what eugenics is, so quick.
So eugenics is a type of population control that says we want a certain type of child or a certain type of kid, and we don't want other kinds of kids. So, for example, Adolf Hitler practiced a form of eugenics in that he didn't want the Jews around. Okay. Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of Planned Parenthood, practiced a certain type of eugenics. She hated black people. And so, for instance, in 1915, the African-American population in the United States was 15%. When I wrote my book, The Feminist Lie, in 2017, the black population was under 13%. Now I think it's just over, it's like between 13.5 and 14. So it's starting to creep back up. But eugenics is population control. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that, or whether you say, yeah, this population or that population needs to be, I'm not debating that here, right? I have no position on that, and I can be objective enough to see both sides of the thing. But feminism pushed birth control. And when it pushed birth control, it was the idea of birth control was that women can go out and they can be promiscuous, and then they can do what they want. They have their own sexual freedom, right? So that was the goal. But what these feminists didn't understand was that the more partners that a woman has, the harder it is for her to pair bond with the man that she falls in love with or the man that she wants to commit to. And so, and we know.
Quick question: Do you think that's for a man also?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't, and here's the reason why. In 2000, I want to say it's 2010 or 2012, Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center did a study on women who were dead. And these women, all of these women in this study, or the majority of these women, had male DNA in their brains. And what they figured out in this study was that when women have a son during the birthing process, through the umbilical cord and the whole pregnancy process, the woman incorporates some of that male DNA into her body permanently. We're a study. It was not, we're not talking theories here, Primal Man. There was a study out of Fred Hutch. You can look it up. And I'll get the name of the study later on if you want, because I've read it a couple times. But there were some women in the study who didn't have sons, and they still had male DNA in their system, and it was DNA that they hadn't had early in life. And so now this is a theory, is that women incorporated this male DNA into their system through sexual intercourse. Now,
I've heard this theory. Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about this is this: they could have done more research on this, right? They could have found childless women who were strippers, who died, cut into their brain, and said, "Oh my God, look at this! It's like sperm maggots." I mean, right? Or they could have done it, right? And so, yeah, exactly. Jared is exactly right. It's called chimerism, and they could have done this, but the second that they realized that this could have happened as a direct result of sexual intercourse with more than a few partners, they shut the study down. In fact, there's been no research since. Now, Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center is one of the premier research hospitals and research centers in the country. They have a stellar reputation, and they shut it down. They shut it down completely. So it's like things that make you go, right? So when you look at that and you see that and you realize, okay, that's a possibility. But the other side of it is that one of the things that feminism doesn't tell women is this: you will be happy. They don't say that. They don't say you're going to be happy. They say you will be independent. And so I started seeing, as I was making videos and as I was researching this a lot more and paying more attention to it, you start seeing these prominent female journalists and prominent professional women in their 40s, they started writing articles. This is probably in 2014 to probably 2018. They started writing all these articles going, I left the love of my life. This man did nothing wrong. This man was the perfect husband. He was the perfect father. I abandoned him. And now he remarried. He had kids. He's happy. I'm alone. I'm miserable. And many of these women said some variation of that same thing. Obviously, some of them included cats. Some of them included boxed wine, but there was some variation of that story. And I realized really early on, and that this was
That's kind of a meme in the manosphere right now, is that women will be covered in cat hair, go ahead and invest in cat food and box wine.
Well,
and,
it's an old meme, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, being, I'm 58 years old, and I'm going to be straight up and honest and just say that, yeah, I do see this in society with women that are, in their late 40s to 50s, and I think it's kind of sad. I really do. I think a man can spend his time alone easier than a woman can.
Well, I think the issue here is that men are more capable of being solitary. And it's not that we're social animals, so we all need interaction. We all need physical touch. We all need to feel loved. We all need to feel appreciated. That's not just a sphere of, of being a female or an effeminate man. That's true anywhere you go. And they've done studies on this as well, like with social isolation in the context of solitary confinement, or social isolation where you just go crazy. I mean, look at what was that, Castaway with Wilson?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example of that, where he just goes batshit crazy and he starts talking to his volleyball. So, I think that's important. But the thing that was interesting is that as I was researching this and I started looking at the Fred Hutch stuff, I started, reading these articles about these upset women. I started, looking at all the facts that were there. I started applying this to my own life. And I was talking and I remember many conversations I would have, because, you're in the litigation. And so sometimes, a lot of this stuff goes to mediation or it goes to arbitration and it's outside of court. Well, occasionally you get a chance to talk to the women, the ex-wives. And so I would get to talking to these women and they would tell me, they'd say, I didn't want this to turn out this way. I didn't want this post-divorce fight or this divorce to be so acrimonious. I didn't want World War III. But my attorney told me that I had to, or my therapist told me that I had to, or this counselor that the court required that I go see told me that I had to accuse him of DV, or I had to make things worse, because if I didn't, I wouldn't get custody of my kids. And they scared me. So I did that. And then they're like, 5 years down the road, they're like, now, I don't hate my ex-husband, but he hates me. And I'm a horrible person because I did all these things to him that he didn't deserve. And I lied about him in court. And I didn't want all that. And so a lot of these women feel regretful in the quiet moments when it comes to this thing. So I was seeing some of that working in family law as well. And when you look at it from that perspective and you look at it from that lens, you realize that this whole feminist movement and this, Divorce Incorporated movement, it's all astroturf. Yeah, there's these women out there that are horrible people. Sure, there's horrible men out there too.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the women, they don't start out as being the piece of garbage that they end up being. And what I mean by that is it's not that women are horrible people per se. It's that they end up being tossed away like the garbage because they make these decisions that they can't walk back from. Right. And that's a huge thing, because there are times in your life where you're at a crossroads, you're at a transition. And, they say, well, death is a transition. Well, the reason they talk about death as a transition is that you can't come back from it. Well, in life, there are many decisions that we as men and women have that we cannot come back from. And women see this all the time. Oh, this man, he was a fantastic man. He was not a perfect husband. I could have been a better wife or whatever. And then all of a sudden they're like, I can't go back. This guy hates me. He'll never trust me again. It's like that whole, there's a meme online where you take a china plate, right? Like a really nice china plate. You take it and you throw it on the floor. It breaks in 15 pieces. And you look at it and you go, I'm sorry. Well, does sorry fix the plate? Does it put it back to its original position or its original condition? No, you can't do that. The plate is forever broken. It's the same thing with trust. When you violate trust, at some level, it's going to be forever broken. And it takes a long time to rebuild trust. And because women are being shoved or being pushed, I should say, with this massive level of full spectrum indoctrination of instant gratification, most women don't have the resilience or the psychological endurance to put in the work necessary to rebuild any trust they've lost. And that's a shame for them as well as men.
Now, I don't think a lot of women, but there are a lot of women that don't identify as feminists, and they don't think they are. I think they've been kind of pushed into that narrative. In other words, you can do it on your own. They don't identify as specifically a feminist per se, but I think they've been pushed into this. And when I say pushed by maybe friends of theirs or the whole "you go girl" thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So to me, I do have a little bit of, empathy for a lot of women out there that are really pushed into this. I think Mighty Zane has let me bring on Gonzo real quick again.
Sure.
Mighty Zane has a great question here. Let me address this right now real quick, and then we'll get right back on it.
Sounds good.
And so what are your thoughts on fairly recent content creators using the term Mgtow in their title in order to gain viewers and new subscribers? This is really good because I wanted to get into this. And I think to me, what I'm seeing is, again, when I thought of Mgtow originally, it was the whole, the doll banger, whatever you want to call it, kind of guy. And that was a while ago, but I'm finding that just the word Mgtow tends to attract guys. But I also think a lot of times it keeps guys in a really, really bad loop. It's the whole, it's almost like it's the opposite of a feminist. I mean, to me, that's kind of what it seems like, some of it.
Well, I would say that, yeah, I mean, Mgtow gets an A for theory, but when it comes to some content creators, they get an F for execution. So with that said, there's a lot of really great Mgtow content creators out there. A lot of Barbarossa's stuff is really good. I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of it's really good. Stardust is fantastic. He takes a little bit getting used to because he's a little bit monotone occasionally, but he has really great insight. There's a Mgtow guy that died recently, or died a while ago, not like, I don't know, probably a year, maybe a little less, named Paul Proteus. Paul Proteus, I've never seen a bad video that he's done, and he's a humble guy. He's just, but he died, but he's got great content. It's still on YouTube. Razorblade Candy is another one. Marcus from the Metaphysics of Mgtow, another one. These guys, none of these guys are so in about 2015 to 2018, there were a lot of people that were like on Social Security disability type of guys who maybe might not have been mentally stable, and they started making YouTube videos. And all of a sudden you saw Mgtow go from this intellectual conversation where a lot of people had really good things to bring to the table when it came to these discussions, even if we didn't always agree. Everybody brought really good things to the table, right? But then and I think Stardust coined this term, he called it the Mgtowification of YouTube. And it kind of turned into an intellectual ghetto. And what I mean by that is that there was no intellectual discourse. It was everybody was repeating the same lessons, but they were just applying them to their own anecdote, right? So you would have like 15 YouTubers would be like, yeah, she cheated on me, right? And they would all tell the she cheated on me story. Or you would have 15 YouTubers going, don't trust women, right? And then they would live stream about that. And then, you know, it would degenerate into some F-bombs here and you know, some knuckle dragging there and some ha 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 and some memes. And then they would move on with their day. And they were all doing the same, like, low quality shtick. And these things, while they help men in the red pill rage, they don't help men who, number one, have already gone through it, and they don't help men prior to getting to that point. And so I think that, you know, when it came to the newer content creators that are here, a lot of these people, I would not be surprised if you checked out their computer and they had a Steam profile and they had downloaded the game called How to Be a YouTuber. So there are a lot of people out there that their goal is, I want to be a professional YouTuber. And they, you know, they have no job skills. They've got no legitimate or credible job history. They have no achievements to speak of. And you're supposed to listen to them when it comes to this stuff. And you know, again, a broken clock is right twice a day. So if you're regurgitating tried and true and credible wisdom, yeah, that's great. But at some point, these people are just there to really just to make a buck. And so what they do is they look at their analytics and they look at what their crowd likes and they do the thing. And they're like, oh, look, I'm a successful Mgtow YouTuber. And you see this. I mean, I see these guys. There was a guy named Howard Dare that used to do a live stream. And toward the end, his live stream got so inflammatory that he really wasn't talking anymore about Mgtow philosophy or Mgtow wisdom or having conversations about those things. It was just it was the women are bad and look at this horrible women. And then all of a sudden, you know, the Mgtow community is credibly accused of, well, if you hate women so much, why do you focus on them?
Yeah.
It's a valid argument, right?
I mean, doesn't it becomes an echo chamber. I mean, I look at certain red pill content creators, black pill now especially, and
Sure.
you can watch a stream, you can watch it for 5 minutes and it's the same damn thing. It just, how many times can you fucking talk about the same fucking thing? I just don't know.
And the problem is that, you know, look, it's the difference. There's a huge difference between the way Mgtow is communicated compared to Christianity, right? So you have Christians for thousands of years, and they're all reading from the same book or a similar book, right? And Christian pastors are all preaching from this book, but they all bring something to the table. They all bring some sense of morality or a proverb or a lesson that they're trying to get across in an effort to make their flock more resilient. The difference between the pastors that are reading from the Bible or teaching from the Bible versus the Mgtow voices teaching from the philosophy is that these voices are not focused on making their followers or their listeners more resilient or making them more independent or making them better critical thinkers. And by the way, I want to say thank you for everybody who's shown up so far. I've seen some hellos and hi, DDJ. I apologize for not responding right away. I just want to say I see you. So thank you for coming and bang those likes.
I have an opinion on a lot of these corners is that they keep you in a loop. They don't let you out. I've been saying this for a while. I also noticed, like, on different streams, and again, I'll pop in here and there. Some of the content is just brutal. I notice in the black pill, I guess it's the black pill community, which is, I want to call that the newest Mgtow rising community. But everything, like a guy eats a sandwich too much and he's a sandwich cell. Everything is cell at the end. I guess that's in reference to an incel.
Well, it's a desperation to be edgy without original thought, right?
Yeah, and it's like people adopt all the terms of their group to feel accepted in the group. And I've noticed this with a lot of people, you know, the whole, like I said, the black pill seems to be the most popular. You can watch one stream, you know, and it's just the same thing. And I get they're trying to bust out the PUA cells, I guess they call them, you know, the whole, but all the different terms, you know, I'm noticing like a coper, location maxing and, I mean, it's just like, it's like, dude, can't you use original thought? Can't anybody use original thought? Do you have to, if you're in that community, do you have to just be part of the echo chamber? And it truly, a lot of it just makes me sick to my stomach. I prefer to hear like original words. Like, you don't have to say, make up something different. Say what it is, because it just, to me, it's an echo chamber, and it's sad. I'm not seeing anything that's original or.
Well, the issue is yeah, the problem is that a lot of the content creators in the Mgtow community, with the exception of myself, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or egotistical here, but you can look at, I mean, look at the Mgtow content creators that exist today, with the exception of maybe Stardust and probably Human, maybe. I don't know of any other content creators whose content over the years is still continuing to evolve. And that's a huge problem for not just the Mgtow community, but it's a huge problem for men in general. Because what happens is it creates this tribalism that fosters this lowbrow, low intellect echo chambers that in the end they harm men. And you can't, the goal, look, we all live different lifestyles, and just look at the United States, for example, right? What is culturally acceptable in Arkansas is different than what's acceptable in California, is different than what's acceptable in New York or Chicago or Seattle or even in Florida. The social rules are similar, but they're not the same. And men, while we have some similarities, we are not the same. And so we have to be able to, number one, reach men where they are. But I also think that if you have a voice, I mean, I'm fortunate. I have, 25,000 subscribers, and that, I'm fortunate for that. But the reason that I have those subscribers is because my goal is to make them better critical thinkers. It's to make them more self-reliant. It's to make them better decision makers, and to make them more confident in their decisions. And more importantly, to reinforce their ability to ignore bullshit. I mean, my goal is not as a professional YouTuber per se, even though I have some level of e-celebrity. My goal is to empower men so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. And I can't make your decision for you, because number one, it's not my turn to babysit. But number two, I don't know anything about the majority of these people's lives. So if I can provide some information to objective information, and I can provide objective analysis so that some of these guys can model the behavior and go on their own, I think that's important. And what I mean by that is that, back in the day, I don't know what anybody's background here is, but I took Ishinru Karate Do way back in the day. It's an Okinawan art.
Mhm.
And before they would let me test for my black belt, I had to create my own form, my own kata.
Mhm.
And so I couldn't even test until I did. And the reason that I had to create my own kata was because I had to be able to demonstrate to my sensei that I understood the art, that I also understood the moves and the techniques. And the only way that they could show to prove that was to create a kata and be able to explain it and to be able to teach it. And so when the same thing is true with the manosphere or with any kind of mentorship thing, right? You teach the basics, or you provide the basics, and then they have to figure out what to do with them. Just like I had to figure out the kata, they have to figure out what to do with them, how to make those decisions in a way that makes their life better, that makes it more socially fulfilling, more financially fulfilling, more spiritually fulfilling, and more intellectually fulfilling. And you see a lot of people who don't have those four areas in balance, and they become black pill YouTubers that are F this and F that, or they become, PUAs who can't move away from chasing skirt, and they don't have any balance in their life. And when you don't have balance in your life, it's a whole lot harder to achieve things in your personal life. And so, from my perspective, as a self-reliant man, we have to work together to empower each other. So like I try to actively participate in my comments and my videos because occasionally I learn something. I get feedback from the people who watch my videos and I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't think of this." Now there are concerned trolls out there and I basically tell them to go play hide and go fuck themselves. But beyond the concerned trolls, I try to learn from it because I tell you what, there are some brilliant people that come to my channel. I've had attorneys come to my channel. I've had, people with master's degrees. I've had, really intelligent and well-educated people. And I've even had people go, "Hey, you're almost right, DDJ, but you're wrong about this. And I do this for a living, so I should know. And here's why this is the case," right? So we all learn from one another. And I'm no better than anybody else. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. And like I tell people, I'm a nobody behind the keyboard, And if people respect what I do, that's great. But what I speak about is what I know about through my own personal experience. And there are many really strong and articulate, self-reliant men out there who speak from their experience and their knowledge and their wisdom. And those people, every one of them, deserves to be heard, and they all have something valid to teach. And at the end of the day, even fools have something valid to teach, and usually it's what not to do.
I've got a question that, and then Gonzo, I know you got some questions, but I have a question for you, and this might rub a lot of people in the Mgtow and especially the black pill community the wrong way. But I really believe that a lot of these guys are incels, and if anybody doesn't know, that's an involuntary celibate. And I'm not being harsh on the guys, but from what I'm seeing is that they're telling you you'll never meet a woman because you're this or you're that, and the whole fucking thing. And it's just sickening to me because what it does is it almost, and I'm just speaking my mind here. I'm sure people think I'm wrong about this, but you're not going to get that, especially in the manosphere, that 9 or that 10. So you might as well just give up. I say, what's wrong with being with someone that you're attracted to? Period. Just period. And still being a man, still doing the things that a man does in a relationship. Because I really don't think there's such a thing as an incel. I think they choose that lifestyle because they're kind of forced when they get into these communities that because you don't look a certain way, you're not going to get this. Now, what do you think of that?
All right. Yeah. All right. So men of breeding age, usually from between 15 and let's just say 35, at some level, every man is an incel. And let me explain why. Okay. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a Chad. It doesn't matter if you're, if God was kind to you genetically. None of that matters. It doesn't matter if you have a 25-foot dick. Okay. The reality is this: men have, on average, 8 times the sex drive in their prime that women do. So men want to fuck all the time. And it doesn't matter if this chick is hot to trot or not. Let me tell you something, and I say this from experience. If you fuck her enough, she will dry out and she will get sore. And then she can't fuck as much anymore. And you're still going to want to fuck. And she's going to be angry at you because you're still going to want to fuck her, okay? So you have to understand, like, that's the case. That's why when you hear about the homosexual community, it's not uncommon for gay men to have 1,000 partners. Also, it's not uncommon for them to have incurable STDs. Just a little side note there. But that said, look, you can go on the internet right now and you could find pictures of absolutely ugly ex-convicts with hot chicks. You can find pictures of these guys who, whose waistline is bigger than their chest, and they're still pulling these women. These guys are not PUAs. They're not YouTubers. They're just dudes. Okay. And you see these guys who are successful and they pull these hot women. Everybody's like, "Oh, well, that's beta bucks and alpha fucks." Let me tell you something. These women won't divorce these men in by and large cases because they know this is the wagon that they're hooked up to, and there are reasons for these women to be around these men. And when it comes to a lot of these guys, like I've seen some of these former Mgtow black pillars, and let me tell you something, most of the guys who show their face on camera, number one, they're not ugly. A lot of them are fit. A lot of them go to the gym. And all of these guys, if they had social skills, would be able to date if they wanted to. Now, I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, because there's a lot of reasons to be careful around women in 2021. And many of those reasons are just the same reasons I articulated in 2017, 18, 19, and 20. But that said, let's just set that aside for a second and let's just be real objective and take off the Mgtow hat and actually talk about just manhood in general. And what we're talking about here is that these guys don't try to date, and they can't navigate the social setting. And many of these guys have mental health issues, or they're autistic, so they can't read the micro expressions that women give them, or they can't read the tells. You see, it's women who choose whether or not sex happens. It always has been. The woman makes herself available, and if the guy sees the cues, he moves in. And then they're like, oh yeah, the dude just did it. Look at that. This guy's an alpha Chad. No. He was just waiting for her to give him the go ahead. And then they test the waters a little bit. And if she figures it out after talking with them, boom, they go and they do their thing. And there are a lot of guys in the Mgtow community that date women. But I think that when it comes to a lot of these incels and black pillars, they're nihilists. They want to accelerate the demise of everything. And honestly, it's extremely unhealthy. And I think that when you have people who are not mentally stable, who are trying to be the voice, or trying to be the voice of wisdom, that's a really scary thing, because, you know, Jim Jones did it and he got a bunch of people to drink Kool-Aid and they all died. So, you know, this psychological thing where you have people who literally are diagnosably insane, or they're psychopaths, or they're dark triad, or they're you know, they don't have any sense of ethics. And you can tell by listening to them, because they espouse the fact that they have no ethical or moral standards. And those people you want to stay away from. And you know what? If they want to destroy their own lives, that's great. More power to them. Just, you know, don't be the next school shooter or whatever, right? Just go do your own thing and move on with your life. But anybody who's out there who follows these supposed black pill people, or watches their stuff and sees it, and you're like, something's wrong here. Well, yeah, it's because they're diagnosable and you're not. So maybe you find somebody that tells you something to be supportive, because again, the black pillars are doing the same things that some of the knuckle draggers within the Mgtow community used to do. And that is, they are not reinforcing men. They are not making them stronger. They're not making their lives more resilient. They're trying to tell, they're saying, give up, give up, give up. And, you know, I don't know about you guys or what your history is, but, you know, I remember, you know, wrestling in middle school and in high school. And I remember martial arts tournaments. If you go in to lose, you will always lose. Unless that person is a bigger loser, right? And now you're competing to figure out who the lesser of the two losers is. But if you go in to win and you have an attitude to win, you will win more often. You will be successful more often with that positive mental attitude. The same thing is true whether it's dating, or whether it's your financial life, or your social life, or your intellectual life. The more positive attitude you have, the better your life will be. In black pill people don't have a positive attitude. They don't have a healthy attitude. Most of them are not psychologically stable. And you can watch them for 15 minutes and see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say not all, but most. I see where it's this loop. Like it's not like you can't leave, but we're giving you the facts, so it's over for you. And to me, that's a real bad road to go down. You know, right. We had this one guy on here, I think it was Dippin', and he's taken a lot of heat. And I don't know the guy. I heard he died or killed himself. I don't know how true that is. I really don't. He came on here one night. He could just be a bullshitter. I don't know. But, you know, when a guy, you know, it's like when a guy says, well, I can't meet a woman, you know, how do I talk to women? Well, you know, I had said here a few nights ago, I don't know, a couple streams ago, that if you want to learn to talk to women, you have to talk to women, not just women you want to meet, but all women. And to me, that's a great, that's a piece of advice that I give. And I don't give advice. I'm here to study philosophies and just talk to people and bring things out, you know. But so I hate to see guys stuck in a corner. And I find that so much in the manosphere. You can't leave. And they'll say, oh, we're here to help you. We're giving you the cold, hard truth and things like that. You know, but I do like to look at these different philosophies. I think it's real important that you go into these streams and these groups with an open mind. In other words, think for yourself. Stop losing your identity. I mean, quit losing your identity. Your identity is you as a man. Don't take on that groupthink. I think that's what happens. You know, that's the left. I mean, it's a groupthink. It's everybody has to think the same, be the same. But if you speak up in these communities, I mean, you know, you look at it on like, I remember like Rolo stream, somebody says anything, you know, all of a sudden, you know, the chat just piles on. You know, she's never yours. It's just your turn. You know, cock carousel. Here comes here they come. Here comes all 9 rules and about 50 fucking more, you know. And it's like, well, the guy asked a question. The guy had enough balls to actually ask a question. And it's a pile on is what it is.
Well, again, and this goes back to the voice themselves, right? And so, for example, like a lot of the people that view my content, they will watch my content or maybe they'll watch a stream and then they'll disappear for 4 months, 5 months. And the reason they're disappearing is because they are living their own lives, right? They're not sitting at home on their computer watching somebody else talk about something. They're living their own lives. They're working, they're reading books, they're interacting with people around them. And I think that when it comes to that sort of thing, that's extremely important. But when you have all these people piling on, that right there is a demonstration of a cult mentality. And because, you know, what you're doing is that you say the certain trigger words, and then all of a sudden, you know, the ghouls come out of the woodwork and they start attacking who they feel is threatening you. You see, I've seen this in the Mgtow community as well. So yeah, it's absolutely an issue. Now, I will say this: I think that people do need to have a tribe. I believe they have to have things they belong to. But I think that the tribes that people need to start looking at again, if they really want to be self-reliant and independent, are the tribes of their own communities, the small towns, the churches they go to, you know, if you have a job and your employer has a baseball team or something, you know, those types of things, because now you're having healthy social interactions with people. And again, you're not sitting at home on your computer on a Friday night, drinking a bunch of beer, talking about how you can't do anything because you can't get your dead ass up out of the chair and do it.
Yeah, I want to address Jared Mesa here. He said black pill is not nihilism unless you're weak-minded and you let in turn you're nihilistic. Yeah, I understand that, but what happens is, Jared, is that a lot of guys come in, they are weak, they are injured. You know, I totally get what you're saying. I get it. You know, I know, you know, from seeing you around and on 21 and things like that, I know that, you know, you subscribe to the black pill philosophy, and that's cool. You know, I have no issue with that. I tend to subscribe to, I'll call it the Tony Bruno pill. It's what works for me and makes my life go smooth. And I think that's real important that everybody does that. Is I take philosophies from black pill, from red pill, from, you know, here we are in the labels again, Mgtow, and all different philosophies. And to me, that's what makes me happiest in my life. But understand that when guys come into these communities, they are already weak. And
well,
that's
and
saying that.
And I think that there's something that needs to be said about that as well. A lot of guys will come into these communities because they're searching for answers they can't find. These guys. You see, I hear a lot of people trash the people who come into the manosphere as they enter, right? And the thing that I never hear is anybody address why they got there in the first place. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy may have had a bad breakup that wasn't his fault, Maybe he lost his job because he got set up by a feminist at work. Maybe he got divorced. Whatever the reason is, they're usually at a very low point. And I agree with you, Tony, when it comes to that. And that low point, while they realize they can't get the answers from anybody else, they come into the manosphere, and yeah, they're weak. And I don't mean weak in a negative sense. What I mean is that they're highly impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they start hearing things that kind of support an idea of confirmation bias, or they have a content creator who pushes a confirmation bias attitude, what you see is that they just immediately adopt that attitude. They join that tribe, and boom, it's done. And while Jared, yeah, black pill might be cool for people that are not weak-minded, what I have seen is that there are a lot of people in the black pill community, even some of the black pill voices, who are extremely weak-minded by choice. It's not that they're coming to the manosphere and they don't have the answers. It's that they have the wisdom that they need to move on. They have the ability to move on. They just choose not to, because they so closely identify with this particular label that they can't be themselves. You know, it's like you got to be a Tony cell. So
yeah. I mean, that's Gonzo, go ahead, man. You've been quiet the whole time.
Oh no, I'm just saying, like, I also think people are just switching around the goalposts, with this whole thing. And this happens all the time, with like all kinds of different things in politics and whatever, right? But now it's becoming this thing where it's like, when you say black pill, there's almost a sense of, like, I don't even know what that is. Like what exactly are we talking about? Like, we have to like get a definition. But what I am seeing in the black pill right now, the black pill as we'll call it, it's just despair. It's just 100% despair. And it's basically, I mean, it's social justice warriors. That's basically what I'm seeing. It's a ton of that. It's the whole cancel brigade, shut everything down. If you have an idea that's different from mine, then you shouldn't be able to say it. Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a clone of the social justice warriors. That's what they are.
Well, there definitely is fanatical.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that that's everything, right? But
well, we're discussing. Yeah. Here's the thing: we're discussing general terms. Again, this is a not all sort of thing, right? I mean, there are unique people out there, so we're just kind of painting a broad brush here of the general community.
Yeah.
You had some questions for me?
Yeah, Gonzo, anything?
Oh,
let's address this real quick with Jara. Black pill I believe LMS theory is looks, money, and status. And I do agree and disagree with that sometimes, because I don't want to say I proved that theory wrong, but I have. But I think everybody has. Of course, I think it's kind of normal. Who doesn't want the best looking woman they can get? Who doesn't want the best looking, what woman doesn't want the best looking man? But I also believe in attraction, and looks. Well, I think it's important for sure.
I think that I think here's the thing. If you're a man and you are directing your life around a piece of ass, you're a fuck up from the start. Here is the PUA lesson that you're going to learn from DDJ, the Mgtow, that very few PUAs will tell you, except for Steve the Dean William and a couple people like him. And I think Tony will confirm this for me as well. Okay. If you're a man and you have a job and you go to the gym occasionally and you take care of yourself and you're relatively successful at your job, and I don't necessarily mean you're a millionaire or you're the boss or anything like that, but you're relatively successful at your job, you go to the gym, you have a social group, that you can go socialize with. Women will make themselves available. They will find excuses to talk to you. You should never chase them. They will make themselves available and they will let you know. In fact, some of these women, if they're interested enough and you miss the cues, they will kind of at some point go, hey, dumb shit, here's the cue again. I took out a fucking billboard. Look at it.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I'll agree with you there. I mean, again, we go to looks, money, status. I'm 58 years old. I've still and never had a problem meeting a very pretty woman. Zero issues. Do I have a house near the beach? Is that my status? Do I own my own business? Is that my money? So
you built that. That's my point. You earned that.
Yes,
Your self-reliance, your independence.
Am I in good shape? Yeah, I think I'm in probably, the top 10% of guys that are 58 years old, low body fat, I lift weights, and so, it's, I've done martial arts for years. So yeah, I think there's something to that. I think it's easier than people think to have that. It really is.
Well,
it's easier than people think.
Yeah, and as men, we are the sum of our habits.
Yeah, I've heard.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've heard some guys. They say like, I hear this more and more frequently, but it's like, I heard someone say, to a man, nothing is more important than the woman's appearance. And my 2 cents on that is just that. At the end of the day, I think that the soul of the woman matters more than the appearance. That isn't to say that, I mean, nobody wants to be married to somebody who's hideous. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with somebody who looks like a monster, right? But I think, part of the issue, like part of, what's landed us in this situation today is that mentality of like, the looks are the most important thing. Because it's, and the other, and this is kind of getting into a whole other thing, right? But with like, chasing 10s and chasing 9s and 10s. And I think that's just terrible. I don't think anybody should be going for the most attractive women, right? At the most, because I think, quite frankly, you're dealing with the most mentally ill women. And that's because
you're talking about the hot crazy matrix. Yeah. And that's true, by the way. It's very true.
Is that what it's called? Okay. Yeah.
If you look on YouTube, for anybody who hasn't seen it, there's an attorney out there. He's a pro gun advocate. He's a conservative attorney. He does this video called the hot crazy matrix. It's an older video. It's as true today as it was when he did it. It's amazing. Go on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's, they know they're attractive. That's the thing, is they know they're attractive. Nobody has to tell them. They know, and they have no issue. Well, not all of them, again, but like a lot of them, chances are they know how to use it, and they've done it many times before, and you're not going to be any different in that situation. And so, yeah, I think chasing the 10s, chasing the 9s and stuff.
Well, if I could interject again too, I think something that's also important. You have to chase within your sexual market value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're a 9 or a 10 and you're an objective 9 or a 10, odds are you're going to be dating more 9s and 10s. But if you're a 6 or a 5 or whatever, or you're a 4 or a 3, you're an incel if all you chase is a 9 and a 10. But if you're chasing within your sexual market value or near your sexual market value, you're going to be far more successful when it comes to dating. And a lot of people think that Mgtow swear off dating. We don't. I don't. I'm human. I have needs.
Yeah, I think, it's so funny that we make it, a lot of these channels make it all about the woman. And making it all about what women do bad is a bad way to look at it. I'm a firm believer. It's kind of like what you just said. You are what you attract. I mean, I think that's a good way to look at it. Is, what you attract is what you are.
Well, I agree. And I will say this though, when my second wife left and she left me, I wasn't Mgtow then, obviously, but she left me. I had custody of both of my kids from that marriage. My children from the first marriage, which I had custody of, they were out on their own at that point. The day after she left, my next door neighbor came over and knocked on my door and asked if we could be workout partners because she saw her packing and leaving. And she's like, holy shit. And this chick was like, in her, she was close to my age. She was in her 40s and she wasn't ugly, but it was interesting because she was on me like flies on shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, at the time I drove a Prius. So it wasn't like I'm not sitting here, and it's funny. People go, oh, you drive a pussy car. Let me tell you something. You ever been hunting for deer? You got to blend into the environment, right? If they think you're one of the pussies, you get closer to them. Anyway, my point is that, she came over and she was in it. But what was funny is that she was kind. She was nice. She invited me over to Thanksgiving, New Year's. We had an adults only party. We went over there and and I mean, I knew her for probably, like, I said hi to her, right? When I was married, I said hi, wave, she waved, we moved on with our day. That's all it was. The day after that my ex left, she was on me like flies on shit. And this was, she left in September. Okay. So
yeah, you're getting dinner brought to your door and all that.
Yeah. And then Thanksgiving, we get invited over. And then we have Christmas, she invites us over. And then New Year's, we go and we have this adults only party. And I've known this woman, and I've probably seen her maybe once a week, once every other week, because I was working 2 jobs at the time. And all of a sudden she's talking about marriage. And she's sitting here just like, I want to get married, this and this and that. And at the time I had a job I was working for a city. So she knew my benefits were really good. So during the day I was working for a city. And then at night I was doing my paralegal work. And I had it worked out with the attorneys I was working with. That was cool. But it was so funny because she wanted to glom onto me right away. And I told my ex, I was like, you're going to have to file the divorce. I'm not filing. So our divorce wasn't even filed yet. Right. We had some agreements we penciled in ourselves, but there was women will make themselves available. And this woman was batshit crazy. Eventually I had to threaten her with a restraining order just to keep her the fuck away, because she was a fucking stalker. So, but my point is that you have to be careful, because while you might be a guy who has some value, and while you might have a good job and do the things that you're supposed to be doing, never underestimate the power of a crazy bitch to hunt you down. Because I'll tell you what, they are fucking hyenas occasionally.
Looks like Large Kitchen Matches. He's not enjoying the stream.
Well, if you're not enjoying the stream, my suggestion is you go play hide and go fuck yourself somewhere else.
Yeah.
So unless you need attention, and congratulations, you got it. You're welcome.
Well, I gave it to him. Let me say hi to Muhammad. Muhammad, I did get your email today, by the way. So thank you. I will contact you. I did get your email. So thanks for that. And we'll get together here soon. So
maybe Large Kitchen Matches can be the third downvote.
Yeah.
You can do it if you put your mind to it.
Oh, that's so funny. So let's go back to Mgtow Philosophy.
Sure.
I want to ask the chat while we're talking about this too. If you have any questions about Mgtow Philosophy, I really like DDJ's take on it. So DDJ, what do you think about? I like that question about these other content creators. I'm not going to say any names, but what I'm seeing is, again, I'm seeing money grabs. Yep. Now I'm all about making money, and I think quality content, and if people want to donate and all that good stuff, go for it. But I think a lot of these guys now are really, they're making money, but they're also looking for the validation as a content creator. So what do you think of that?
Well, it's actually more than that. I kind of made a joke a little bit about, like, if you go on the Steam store, I play video games occasionally when I have a chance. When you go on the Steam store and you find there's a video game, it's like how to be a professional YouTuber type of thing, right? That's what these guys are doing. They asked about career paths probably 2 or 3 years ago of Americans. And one of the top 3 answers for career paths for Americans is, I want to be a YouTuber. So you have these people who maybe they have a degree, or maybe they have some, ability or whatever, but they're not they're not content creators, they are products. And so large kitchen matches, dude, bro, stop with the negative self-talk and projection. I get that you haven't had your meds. I totally respect that. I encourage you to get into it. And yeah, switch to decaf, bro. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're a positive stream here. So anyway, my point is that you know, these guys are there to make money. So there was a guy in the Mgtow community who started out as Mgtow. He was called Mgtow Voltaire. And of course, he had Mgtow in front of his name, right? He grew his channel. All of a sudden, he was over a certain amount of subscribers. He took Mgtow off his name and he moved on, continuing to create similar content specifically for money. And you don't see a lot of his content anymore, but that's kind of how he started. And the same thing is that when it comes to a lot of the newer content creators that have been out, let's say 1 to 3 years, most of those guys are just regurgitating what other people have said 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago. And, you know, they have a fancier package because they've got a little better video production. And again, because the products, it's not because of the people. So like, say, for example, somebody like Steven Crowder, right? Steven Crowder is not a content creator. He is a product. He has a team. He has a production team. He employs a bunch of people to put on the Steve Crowder show. So you can watch the Steven Crowder product. Whereas if you go to my channel or you go to, you know, many other channels out there, it's a guy just doing it all himself. You know, I don't have a product team where I'm going to have them do all my video production for me, right? And again, listen, Terry B, those people who don't feel like they can, look, money's tight for everybody right now. The best way that you can support a channel, whether it's mine or Tony's or anybody else's, is to force multiply it. It's to like it. It's to share it.
Yep.
It's to talk about it. It's to have meaningful conversations. That's the goal. So I think that, you know, when it comes to a lot of these different people, you know, they're just regurgitating old content. They're trying to make a buck. And again, they come onto the scene real big. They've got a real flashy product, and then they go away. There was a guy, I forget his name. He was like this super ambiguously gay guy, and he was making Mgtow content, and he blew it up into the scene. And oh, hi, Grim.
I know. I had to throw that up.
Oh no, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Anyway. I don't know who Sandman is, so
prominent Mgtow creator.
Hey guys, Sandman here.
No, I'm sorry. Here, let me do it this way.
Hey guys, Sandman here.
Okay, I did hear he talks very nasally. So
Sandman is with respect, Sandman is a self-admitted schizoid. He makes content. He originally started making travel videos, and he joined the Mgtow community, monetized all his videos, and now the majority of his videos are sponsored videos where people pay him to make videos. And so he does a really good job of making kind of like Mgtow 101 style things where he can reach the lowest common denominator and do the basic messaging. But when it comes to stuff beyond that, while he understands it, he doesn't really talk about it a lot on his channel. So I think that, you know, again, and Sandman, I have a lot of respect for him because he's been around a long time, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sandman is a text-to-speech algorithm.
He's not. He's Canadian.
Okay.
I've actually talked with him behind the scenes. He sounds like that when he's offline too. It's hilarious.
I want to address this large kitchen matches guy. If you got a real question, dude, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If not, I'm just going to bump your ass. So, you know, if you're going to be just being a jerk in the chat, you know, that's fine. But if you want to jump in the discussion, that's great. I haven't booted you yet, but you know, the gulag is coming. So if you want to reconcile, I'm good with that. If you don't, you'll just be gone. So if you want to dirty up the chat, that's up to you. I'm a good guy, buddy, but I can only take so much shit, just so you know. So if you want to say something nice, say it. If you don't, you're gone. So you do what you got to do.
Well, and when we were talking about the Mgtow community, like the original, like Stardust, Barbarossa, a lot of those people. Yeah, I think it's important. Like if you find value in the content that you're watching, absolutely support anybody you want to support, you know, whether it's financially, whether it's liking and sharing a video, whether it's if the video is monetized and you watch it again, or you turn it on the background on mute and then you just let the video play so that they get credit for the views and they get credit for the AdSense or the AdWords type of things. Those things are fine.
I mean, for me, if people want to donate, I do have a section in my description, and occasionally I get $5-10 here and there that people said, thanks, I enjoyed your comment. It's actually a snug link, but people can also click on my links on Amazon. They can buy the tactical soap, from my buddy Scott Carr. It's great soap. I know it's, people talk about the whole soap thing, but Scott's a great friend of mine. It's all natural. I love it. So if you do want to support, purchase something that I have in the description of the video. That's all. Not only that, too, like when you buy tactical soap, it supports another man in a business that's built by a man, and he's a good friend of mine. And you get a product for it. You're not just donating. And if you use my link, you get I think it's 10% off too. So that's a simple way to do it. So,
Right. But like I said, a lot of these people, again, when you watch their content, ask yourself, is their goal to make men more self-reliant, or is their goal to get likes and subs and money and shills?
This guy's a real, there's only one word I can give this guy, and I'm just going to say nerd. And I've never used that, but the guy's a nerd. Like nerd alert.
I don't worry about that. The reality is this. If this stream helps one person,
exactly,
we did our job. And the other side of it is that, you have somebody who's a sock puppet who's just there to get attention. I just say, you know what? Let him sit in a chat, and with respect, he can die nameless, and let's just move on.
Yeah, John Boston, you're a wrench, so you can do whatever you want in the chat.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna say, I mean, that's about as much as I would expect from a box of large kitchen matches.
Where's MD and nut shots? More backstabbing? I have no issue with those guys, dude. I had no issue with Marty, no issue with MD. None at all. So if you want to just stir some shit, keep up. I haven't blocked you yet, but it's like, dude, is this what your life is about? I mean, let's get real.
Gonzo, did you have any other questions?
You got your 2 minutes of fame, so I'm proud of you. Hope you're proud of yourself. Now go back to your Cheetos, please, and your gaming.
I'm trying to think. I'm pulling a blank right now. I feel like I think maybe earlier I think I was going to go back to the subject of, is it different? Is it different? How the pair bonding works between, the difference between the man and the woman. Does having many partners or whatever, does that affect the pair bonding? But I wanted to get down to the bottom of that, because I think you had set that up. But I guess the distinction that you were making, right, is that the men don't have the woman's DNA floating around in their body, right? It's just the women have the men's DNA.
Correct.
And so, I don't know. I guess I kind of just wanted, I wanted some more elaboration on that.
Honestly, I wish I could give it, and that's why I was saying, I think somebody in the chat accurately said that, we were kind of going from information to theories. And that was the point I was trying to make, was that the second that people started paying attention, they said, and they saw the finding, it said, this could be from intercourse, all of a sudden, all the research stopped. There was no funding for that research anymore. And you got to ask yourself, why is that the case? Why is that happening? Here's another one. So, for example, there's all this research on female birth control, right? Well, there was a birth control for men out there called Vagisil, and I think it was, I forget the exact name of it, but it was something like that. And basically, what it was it had a switch where you could flip a switch, and it shut off the vas deferens, so that you wouldn't get a woman pregnant. It couldn't get funding. Nobody would fund it. So you got to ask yourself, if this is a non-gender biased or a non, if birth control is a non-gendered thing, then why not give men the ability to control whether or not sex produces a child, right? you have this great research that's been done, and you have these great things that have been done, and what ends up happening is that they basically go and they say, oh, men can't control their ability of whether or not to birth a child. Does that make sense? Only women should be allowed to do that, and that's just wrong. It's unethical. So
yeah, it's interesting how the bias is kind of just like built into the whole thing. It's fascinating.
Yeah, you know what's funny. I'm going to detour a little, but when you do a stream like this, I'm all about people stating their point of view. I'm about that. I believe in free speech, but I also believe in free speech as in, if you want your free speech, sometimes start your own channel, make your own streams. So, and if you're not, do like I do, like people on Facebook and Instagram, you see people fighting all the time. And, I'm surprised when somebody will say something just completely, just really rude, to me or something like that. But I'll tell them, I said, why don't you do like I do? It's just scroll on by and move by. Are you triggered?
They're so devoid of positive attention. They need the negative attention. Yeah. You see this in relationships as well, in romantic relationships. You ignore your woman for a certain period of time and watch her lose her shit trying to get negative attention from you.
Yeah. I mean, this is, we're going over a Mgtow philosophy here. There hasn't been hate on black pill, red pill, Mgtow, nobody. I'm stating observations that I've seen. These are my observations. Call them subjective, whatever you want, but these are my observations, my opinions on what I see and what I've experienced in my life. So that's the whole purpose of this today, is to have DDJ on and to bring like I said, a unique take on Mgtow. I think he has a very logical, I don't want to say safe approach to Mgtow, but I think it's a safe approach because it's safe for men to adopt this type of philosophy. I'm not seeing a lot of hate from DDJ at all. And I do see a lot of hate from a lot of Mgtow content creators hating toward women, and my whole thing is like, dude, I absolutely love women. There's nothing better than it's so nice to be in the company of a beautiful feminine woman. What is better than that? You know what I mean? It's natural. It's normal.
Well, and you take what works for you and you toss away the rest. It's like that Bruce Lee philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that men need to understand that that's what they need to do. Mgtow is not a religion, but you have certain people who are content creators who try to pretend that it is, or they think it's a political ideology, and really it's not. Now, there's a political element to it in that the original manifesto talks about limited government, but again, we're not talking about it in those terms. Limited government's great. You should vote. You should be politically active, but you're not going to see Mgtow marches anywhere, right? That's not the goal.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the comments here real quick. Birth control is the devil. Female birth control equals perma period. That's funny.
Actually, it's interesting. The IUD, the non-hormonal IUD, is actually very effective for birth control, and it doesn't change what a woman is attracted to.
Well, actually though, I think you're talking about the one that's made out of copper, right?
Yep, that's one.
Yeah, those can actually cause like other issues because of the copper. From what I understand, you can get like copper toxicity or something of that nature. So because I went and I looked into all that stuff, right? And I basically found that there's no guaranteed 100%. I mean, it's like anything in the world, right? But it's not 100% guaranteed safe. Everything is going to be just fine type of birth control. It's all really just, other than, I guess, condoms, but...
Vasectomies. Yeah, I got a vasectomy, and the best decision I ever made.
I don't advocate for the vasectomy, but I think that's... if you already have your kids,
I have populated the earth enough. I have 4 kids.
Yeah. I think that's fair. What I'm concerned about is these young guys, these very black pilled guys getting getting their vasect. I mean, I guess they can. I'm not going to stop them, but I'm just saying, like, I think there might be some delayed regret. So,
Well, look at the bright side. At least they won't breed.
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah. Yeah, that's why that is literally why I'm not afraid of antinatalists in this country. They don't have to worry about them. They just disappear.
Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, let's bring them out. Anybody has any questions? Let's bust them out because we're going to
Grim.
be out here soon.
DDJ, would the IUD work on a man? No. No.
I guess it depends where you put it, right?
Right.
Hey now, jeez. Thanks, Grim. So
that's funny.
But yeah, let's start wrapping it up. So I'm going to ask you a question about: does Mgtow identify more with red pill philosophy, black pill philosophy, or is it on its own philosophy?
Mgtow identifies as red pill philosophy, in that red pill being the uncomfortable truth, blue pill being, the comfortable lie. And really every other color pill is just marketing, with one exception. And that's the one that I coined, of course, which is the purple pill power bottom. And that is the guy who masquerades as red pill. He's really blue pill, but he pretends to be alpha. And it's the guy that when you look at him and, he might have the tribal tattoos and he might have the muscles, but you look at that guy and, deep down, he's had a dick. So.
Yeah, let's see what Jared has to say. MGTOWs gave up on LTR and STR, but they still do one-night stands.
That actually is incorrect. Barbar, while he was making content, was in a long-term relationship. He just didn't live with her. And I know Human, who makes a Mgtow content, I don't know if he's still in it, but he was in a long-term relationship as well. And interestingly enough, because Human is from Australia, they have some very interesting cohabitation, common law, marriage laws. And so, like, if you spend the night at each other's house a certain number of times within a certain period, even if you're not living together, it's considered common law. So he's real careful about that. And I know that, again, I've had short-term relationships. I try to stay away from one-night stands. I'm too old for that shit. But also, I suppose I'd probably have a long-term relationship as long as, there were boundaries.
Yeah. And so this is the question I wanted to, here's one. Didn't you say you're writing another book? That's from Vivian.
Yes, I am. I'm actually in the process of writing 2 more books. One book is actually I don't know if you want to call it true crime, but it's basically about a court case I'm working on in Colorado that is turned into a complete shit show. And it's a perfect example of why the family courts are corrupt. And it's pretty insane. The second book that I'm currently working on is a guide on how to navigate the family court system, how to navigate false allegations, and how to navigate child custody.
Jared Mesa says LTR are an illusion unless there's a contract. Jared, I would love to have you on here one night, man. You can use an avatar because I see you everywhere. It'd be nice to hear your viewpoints.
Well, he has a lot of intelligent things to say. Whether or not I agree with him is irrelevant. Yeah,
it's tough sometimes when you can only put a chat in there. But Jared, I see you a lot, so it'd be nice for you to jump on and you could use an avatar because I know who you are. So let me see what Terry has to say. What do you mean by a guy who's a 9 out of 10 who can attract a 9 out of a 10 woman? Yeah, I mean that's just. I mean, a good-looking Chad is gonna attract a good-looking woman. I mean, that's my opinion. What do you got to say about that? Either of you guys?
I think that's true, but also I think, just because you can get the 9 or 10 doesn't mean you should. I think that's where it really comes down to like the soul of the woman.
Well, I also think too, it's also a question of ethics, right? So, you have these women out there who they're nines and tens. They all know that they can manipulate everybody around them, and they're the type of women that start wars. And so, and many times they're psychopathic. But I think that, when it comes to the rest of this, I agree. I think that, yeah, looks are important. You have to be attracted to the person that you're with. But I also think too that again, you know, you might have amazing sex for an hour a day, but what are you going to do with the other 23? You know?
Yeah, we did a stream a while back. Remember, Gonzo? It was our first stream about Mgtow, me, you, and Man, and we talked about. I mean, we were just kind of throwing stuff that we knew about it, and we talked about. I remember saying, "What types of Mg? Is there different types of Mgtow? Is there a married Mgtow? Is there such a thing?
Oh, was that we talked about like involuntary Mgtow?
Involuntary Mgtow? Yeah. I mean, we were just coming up with everything that we could think of that night. It was actually an interesting stream.
It's funny you mentioned involuntary Mgtow. I actually did a video stream about being an involuntary Mgtow because that's typically how I identify.
Oh wow, okay, because that I kind of looked at it as you were forced into that. It's not something you chose.
Well, it's something that I chose, but I feel forced into it because of the way the laws are. I think that laws, the way the laws are, and the way the courts are implemented, the way the courts execute family court business, it is absolutely scary to be a man anytime from 2005 to today. And even today, it's not getting any better. And the reason it's not getting any better is because more men are waking up to the horrendous elements of divorce court. And the easiest way to prevent divorce is to not get married. And a lot of guys are figuring that out. Whether they figure it out from content like mine or others, the marriage rate is falling through the floor, for good or for worse. Now, is it good for society? No, of course not. Is it good for the birth rate? Of course not. But the problem that people have is they say, oh, well, and you see this in the Christian community all the time. I got an idea. I'm gonna use my big brain, and I'm going to shame men for the birth rate going down. Really, men have control over birth control. Are you a knuckle dragging, booger eating fucking moron? Really? Women control whether or not they have a child. Women control whether or not they get pregnant. It's not the men, it's the women. But you see these guys and they're like, well, you just got to go get married and you just got to take the plunge and you got to do all the things. And it's like, okay, well, great. Well, do you know that if you're living together with a woman and she falsely accuses you of domestic violence, she can lock you out of your bank account, lock you out of your house, and take your car, even if you're not married. And on top of that, if you own firearms, you can no longer allowed to own firearms anymore. You have no Second Amendment right. So now you have this serious issue on your hands where you're like, well, what the hell do I do? Oh, and by the way, that law that allows women to completely crucify you and take away your gun rights has been so successful since it was first implemented in the early 1980s that they have now evolved it so that your neighbors can become Karens and violate your Second Amendment rights to bear arms. They're called red flag laws. And I've talked to people about this, and I've done a video about this as well. And so, oh yeah, and by the way, in Australia, Mohammed, you're absolutely correct. If you're in a relationship and you show that this relationship is that, you're in love with this woman, yeah, you could be considered common law. In fact, you could be considered common law in as little as 6 months, unless you specifically state that you're not. You can waive common law, but most people aren't smart enough to do it. And what I mean by that is that it's not something that's commonly done. You can waive any one of your rights, but you just got to know how to get somebody to do it.
So here's the loaded question.
Go ahead.
Can you be Mgtow and married?
No.
Okay, you can't then. Okay, because we talked about that. Yeah, is there such a thing as a married Mgtow? Is that possible?
Well, let's put it this way. If you read the manifesto, and if you read it like a strict reading of the manifesto, theoretically you could, but the issue is this. I've never met a Mgtow who's married. I've never met any Mgtow with anything intelligent to say who's married. I've met a lot of guys masquerading as Mgtow who are married. I know Howard Dare, for example. I mentioned him earlier. Turned out he was a college professor with 5 kids and he'd been married for 25 years. So,
Yeah.
you know, but again, it's only because, you know, Mgtow started because of all the misandry that was rampant throughout society, and
Yeah.
it was basically about empowering men.
I don't know if a lot of people know what misandry is. Misandry is the dislike of men,
The hatred of
and
men.
boys, or the
Yeah.
hatred of men and boys, whatever. So, so if anybody wants to know, that's what it stands for. And if DDJ, if you can send me that manifesto, I would love to put it in the description of this video.
I can even do one better than that. If anybody here goes to my website called misandrytoday.com,
I have the link in the description of the video.
okay, so if you go to misandrytoday.com,
YouTube. I have it for
there is a header on that called No Ma'am on misandrytoday.com. And No Ma'am is my entire backup of not only the Mgtow manifesto, but of all the writings of the original Mgtow. And I did this because all these original writings were part of an old blog called No Ma'am. And I didn't want this blog to be deleted. And so what I did was I basically backed it all up, and I have it all on my website now. I host it. In fact, I don't get paid any money for this. So all the hosting, I just kind of come out of pocket for it. But yeah, you can see the Mgtow manifesto. Once you click on No Ma'am, you see it says Mgtow Bible. The manifesto is the first thing on the left. And then there's some online books that some of the original Mgtow wrote, like The Masculine Principle, The Principles of Seduction, The Wisdom of Zen Priest, the Book of Pook. There's a lot of really good stuff there. And just so you know, just that one section of my website is at least 1,000 pages.
Wow. That's great.
It took us a long time. It took my team a long time to back it up, but we ended up getting it done.
Yeah. Can you throw that link in the chat?
Absolutely. Hold on.
Yeah, throw that link in the chat. So if anybody has any questions, let's drop them out to EDJ or anybody on the panel. I think this is awesome because I love going over philosophies. You know, I've got about 15 videos on with dating coaches and their philosophies. And it's funny, after I did all those, I've had everybody from, you know, Alpha Male Strategies to Coach Greg Adams to Steve the Dean Williams, Alan Roger Curry. I know I'm forgetting Pat Stedman, who is one of my favorites.
Well, let's put it this way: if you have coach in your name, you probably shouldn't listen to that guy. just unless you're on the gridiron or you're part of a baseball team or you're part of a team in real life. When it comes to the internet and somebody has coach in their name, you know, unless they've been to the Super Bowl, I probably wouldn't listen to them.
Okay. Let me see what RM here. I just saw something come across here.
Yeah, he's right. It was coined by Al Bundy in Married with Children.
Okay. No, ma'am. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Jared. Get the likes up. Yeah, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to have you on here sometime, man, and just you know, I know it's hard sometimes in the chat to say what you want to say. So I do welcome people on, you know, a lot of times. So, and just so anybody knows, I won't be doing a stream on Saturday night. I will be doing one on Sunday nights. I'm taking some Saturday nights off because I like to have fun every now and then. So I've spent since November, you know, doing Thursdays and Saturdays. So I'm going to be doing Sunday nights probably the next 2 weeks and taking some time and doing things I like to do on Saturday, which is usually with a woman. So
yeah, I hear that's a thing occasionally.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You know, it's interesting because John Boston, who's a wrench, he said that, you know, when a RO is filed, you're on a national domestic violence registry. And he's even if you're falsely accused. I'll tell you, it's interesting. In Spain, like 5 years ago, if you're falsely accused of abuse, it goes on your criminal record, even if you're innocent. So, you know, understand that there's a database, and understand that the other thing you should understand too is if you're speaking about this sort of stuff online, there are groups of feminists and social justice warriors and sock puppets out there that are stalking you, and they're doing everything that they can to keep you quiet or to
Okay.
okay.
Hold on. Stop killing me here.
It's the remix, guys. Mute yourself, Tony.
Yeah,
There you go.
I've got two.
Okay, I guess he left. Anyway, just understand that there's a lot of sock puppets out there. I guess he'll be back in a moment. And so I think that it's important, again, to understand that some of these people are there just to disrupt your streams, to disrupt your videos, disrupt your comment sections, those types of things. So, yeah. There we go.
I'm back.
Oh no.
Hang on 1 second here.
Again, we got the remix going on. We're a professional outfit here, guys. Don't mind us. Look, tech issues happen to everybody. It's not a big deal. So
Amazing.
Does anybody have any last questions before we shut down the Echo stream? Give them a couple seconds to catch up here.
Am I back?
All right, I guess we're going to shut down the stream here in just a second. Do you mind if I shill a little bit before we shut everything down?
Let me see if I can.
All right, so Tony's like, yeah, fuck this, I'm done. So I got John Boston question. DDJ, tell me to get the records expunged. So getting your records expunged is a court process you can go to do that. If you've got misdemeanors, it's easier to do. If you don't, you can't. Tony, do you have headphones? I think that for some reason, the reason you have the echo loop is the lack of headphones. Maybe the speaker's acting up. Just FYI. Okay. So anyways, part of the expungement process is that you number one, you have to get into the court, and then you have to turn around. And once you get into the court, you have to let the prosecutor get a chance to kind of say, hey, here's what's going on. And then the prosecutor can object to it. So it's not a guaranteed sort of thing if you want an expungement, but if you've got a good case and you've got character witnesses and people who are talking about your life, that kind of thing, then the expungement is easier to get. And it does happen sometimes. So that it is what it is. So yeah, other than that, I guess the only last thing I'll say is that, you know, if you really want to look at like my concern about domestic violence, I did a video called Avoiding Marriage is Not Enough, where I go specifically into domestic violence and the concerns about it. And then as far as family court is concerned, I've done many videos on that as well. So, but with that said, I think that Tony the Echo Bruno might be ending his stream soon.
Amazing.
Oh, here we go. RM 1983. DDJ, do you plan on doing any more shows with Mgtow Lawyer or anyone else you know in the legal field? Those shows were great and very informative. So I used to do a show with an attorney called the Layman's Legal Clinic. And we used to talk about just different things. Oh, that's awesome. Imagine if you were on acid listening to that. That would be amazing. I was thinking about doing more Layman's Legal Clinic per se, as far as live stream shows are concerned, but I'm going to actually write a book about it so people can take it with them. But that attorney that I used to do the stream with, he and I and one other guy are thinking about getting together and doing a weekly live stream, but we haven't really put it together yet the way we want to. And obviously, as you can see from this particular stream, StreamYard sometimes has an echo. So I would want to figure that out before I started to stream, rather than being, you know, Echo Master J.
Cloney. Oh no.
Yeah.
Cloney has cloned himself.
Perfect.
I have no idea. There's two of you.
It's all good. Yeah, any kind of psychedelics. All right, guys.
This has been incredible.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Amazing. Everybody check out everybody subscribe. Everybody check out Tony's channel. Of course, you're already here. Please subscribe. If we get enough subscribers, we can get him out of this time loop. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
It happens.
It happens. Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yep. Take care,
amazing.
guys.
Much love, honor, and respect. So.